Hey, welcome to InfoGamer. Today we're going to show you how to make the black hole. Now we've already drawn it in a previous video. In this video we're going to show you how to code it and how to put it into the game.
And black holes are pretty awesome. So let's get to it.
Alright, welcome back to our workstation. Here we have Unity open because we're going to go ahead and show you how to code the black hole for our Doodle Jump game. Now the black hole is an awesome feature that Lima Skies put into their game Doodle Jump. It makes it look like there's a hole into some void or some abyss that's just beyond the outside of the paper. It's really like they created a world that's strictly on paper. Like paper is the edge of the world. You could think of back when people thought the world was flat and that you'd fall off the edge. So it's pretty much like the paper is the world, and if you fall off the edge or if you fall into a pit or a hole in the paper, it's just a bottomless pit that you could fall forever. And so this is a way to make it harder for players and create an obstacle that they have to avoid in order to keep progressing through the game. So in this video we're going to show you how to create it and code the interaction between the main character and the black hole. So the first thing that we need to do is create it. We're going to go to Game Object, click on 2D Object and Sprite. Then we'll go ahead and rename it, and we're going to call it Black Hole. Then we're just going to center it. Make sure the X and the Y are at 0 and the Z will be -0.5. The position at this moment doesn't really matter because we're going to make this a prefab and it will later be spawned into our game at random. So the next thing that we need to do is select the black hole sprite and add it to our object. So we'll go to our sprite folder, and under our sprite sheet we'll find the black hole sprite, and we'll click on it, drag it into the sprite renderer component on our sprite game object. Once it's there, you can see, wow, it's huge. It's too big for our game. Like, nobody would be able to get past this black hole. But hey, if you want to like make this game impossible and that's your thing, is to make a game that nobody can beat, that might be what you want to do. But it looks pretty darn cool. I mean, looking at it right there, it looks like a huge hole in the paper and our Doodle Jump character is about to fall into it. But we want to make it a little easier for our players, so we're going to scale it down, and 0.25 should be good. Yeah, that looks about right. So now we're going to add the collider zone for our black hole, but it's going to be a little bit different than the collider zones that we've used in the past. Most of the time we've used a box collider, but because the black hole is pretty much round or circular, we're going to use the circle collider 2D. So add component, physics 2D, and circle collider. Now if I zoom in on it, you can see that the circle collider extends to the end of our sprite, which is probably not what we want it to be, because we don't want our players to skim the black hole and then get sucked in and feel like they've been gypped or ripped off. So we want to make sure that the circle collider fits inside the black part, so that if they definitely touch the black part with more than just a tiny bit of their character, they'll get sucked in, and then the players will know that they've lost the game. So to do this, we'll go here where it says radius on our circle collider, and click and drag to the left until we feel it's a good size. So probably right about there. And it's okay if a little bit of the hole is outside the circle collider, because if anything, we want to give the players the benefit of the doubt. Now we need to add a tag for our black hole, so we'll go to the top, click on the tag drop down menu and add tag, then we'll click the plus sign and we'll type black hole, and I'm just going to keep it one word like that. That way it's easier to call in our code as a string. Then I'll go back to our black hole object and select black hole as the tag. Now the good thing about this black hole is because it's part of the background and part of the paper, we don't need to create an animation for it because it's just going to be stationary. But we do need to create an animation for our main character. Now this animation will make it look like he's been sucked into the void or the black hole. So we'll click on our box dude and we'll need to add the animation component to him. And you want to add it to the parent object because that's where the sprite renderer is. So we'll go add component, miscellaneous, and animation. Then we'll need to open the animation window, and we'll create a new animation, and it's under the animation folder, and we'll call it black hole death. Now we'll need to add a property, and we're going to click on the transform component and click on scale, because we want to make the scale of the object get smaller over time. That way it looks like he's been sucked into the black hole. So we'll extend the scale property, and then we'll at least want to scale it in the X and the Y direction. You also can scale it in the Z direction, but you don't have to. And we want it to last probably half a second. So we'll select our end keyframes and drag them to 30, because that's 30 frames in, which is half a second, because our game runs at 60 frames per second. You can see that it counts up 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and then 60 is 1. And it's 1 second, not 1 minute. So one way that you can create this animation is you can look at your box dude in the scene view and select your scaling tool, then just click in the center and scale it down until he's a good small size. Probably there. And then we can actually play through it and see what it looks like. And that's plenty fast enough. So what we will do is we'll call this animation once our box dude has collided with our black hole. And then once the animation is finished playing, we'll just delete our box dude and cause the game over screen to appear. So we'll want to uncheck this box here that says play automatically on the animation component of our box dude. Then we'll go to our animation folder, we'll find our black hole death and drag it into this animation field. You also want to click on the black hole animation and make sure that the wrap mode is set to once. Now that we have this animation created, it's time to code the interaction between our main character and the black hole. So we'll go to our scripts folder and we're going to open up the body script. So once it's open in MonoDevelop, the first thing that we'll need to do is create a couple variables. So in our body script, we'll create a public game object, and it'll be for our box dude. And then we'll need to create a public, and then we'll call it our game controller script, and we'll call it controller. Then we'll go to our controller script, and we'll need to create a public string, and we'll call it death string, and it'll be equal to nothing at first. Then we'll go to our main character feat script, and we'll need to have a variable for our game controller script. So public game controller, call it controller. So that's all the variables we need. Now we'll go back to our body script, and we'll need to code the interaction between our main character and the black hole. So in the onTriggerEnter 2D function, below our first if statement, we'll need an else if statement, and it'll say if other dot tag is equal to, and we'll say black hole, because that's what the tag is on the black hole, and it needs to be spelled the same. Then inside our curly braces, there's a couple lines of code that we'll need to write. So the first one is we'll call our game controller script by typing controller, and then our is game over variable, and we'll set it equal to true. Then the next one is we need to access our death string, so we'll type controller dot death string, and we'll set it equal to black hole, and that's just so we can specify how our character dies or how he gets game over screen. So if we know that we ran into a black hole, then we can specify what commands we want it to do. So next we'll access our feat script and our isJumping variable, and we'll set it equal to false. Then we'll need to access our feat script again, and this time we'll need to update our toLerp vector3. So we'll type toLerp, then we'll say equals new vector3, and we want it to be the same position as our black hole. So in parentheses we'll get the x coordinates and the y coordinates of our black hole, and currently it's the other object, so other dot transform dot position dot x and comma, we'll say other dot transform dot position dot y. Then we'll hardcode z by typing -0.5f. Next we'll need to change gravity on our boxDude to scale 0. So we'll say boxDude.getComponent, and then in carets we'll need to find the rigid body 2D component, and then parentheses we'll hit dot gravity scale, and we'll set it equal to 0. Now we'll need to play the animation of our boxDude. So we'll get the animation component, so boxDude.getComponent caret animation, then close caret parentheses, then we'll say dot play, and we'll specify which animation we want it to play. So we'll say black hole death. Now that's all the code that we need to write for now in this script. So we'll save it, and then we'll go back to our main character feat script. The first thing that we'll need to do is create a new function. And so we'll go below our jump function, we'll type void, and let's call it the black hole function. And there's no parameters, and then inside the body of the function we'll need to have an if statement, and this if statement will check whether or not our boxDude is currently playing his animation. So we'll say if boxDude dot get component, and then animation close carets parentheses, and then we'll hit dot is playing, and we want the one with capital letters so we can specify which animation we're talking about. So in parentheses we'll type the name of the animation, black hole death, then close quotes, close parentheses. And so if our boxDude is currently playing his animation, then we want him to lerp towards the black hole. So inside this if statement we'll say boxDude.transform.position equals vector3.lerp. Then we'll get the boxDude's current position, so we'll type boxDude.transform.position. Then we'll need to type our toLerp variable, and now we need the speed, and we'll have it be pretty slow, so we'll just put time dot delta time. We won't have any multipliers. Now if our main character has played through his animation and the animation is finished, then we want it to destroy our boxDude, and so we'll type else if, and we're actually going to copy this first if statement, paste it, and right before the boxDude we'll type an exclamation point, and so this will say else if it's not animating, or it's not currently playing the animation black hole death, then we'll do our next part, which will be, we'll destroy our box dude, semicolon. And then we'll want to change our death string, so we'll type controller dot death string, and then we'll say equals game over. Now the reason why we want to change this is so that it doesn't keep running through our black hole function. We want it to only run through its black hole function until our box dude has finished his animation. Then we want it to run through it one more time, delete the object, and then move on. And so we changed this string because the way that we're going to call this function will be dependent on what this string is equal. So now in the update function, we'll need to add an if statement around our jump function. So we'll say if controller dot is game over equal to false. Then we'll put curly braces around our jump function. So in other words, we're saying if it's not game over, then keep playing the jump function. And then we'll say else if controller dot is game over equal to true, then curly braces, and inside this if statement we'll check whether or not the death string is equal to black hole. So if controller dot death string is equal to black hole, then we'll need to call our black hole function. Now the last thing that we need to do so that we don't get errors when we delete our box dude is we need to go to our game controller script, and in our update function around the movement function we need a condition. And so this condition will say if box dude does not equal null, or is game over equals false, then we'll do the movement function, or be checking for the input of the movement function. So we'll add one more curly brace, and then we should be good to go. So we'll go ahead and save this, and we'll also click File, Save All, just in case we missed one of our files. So now we'll go back to Unity, and we'll need to assign those variables that we created. So in our feat script, we need to grab our game controller, drag it into the controller field. Then in our body, we need to grab our box dude, drag it into the box dude field, and our game controller into the game controller field. So now that we have all our scripts connected, I'm going to quickly move the black hole over to the side. That way my character doesn't immediately jump into the black hole. And now we'll go ahead and test it. So we'll hit play. You can see that the box dude is jumping, and as I move him over to the black hole, he gets sucked in and then deleted. So I'll show you one more time. So there's one thing that I would like to change, and that is how fast our main character lerps to the center of the black hole. We'll go back to our code, and right here where we have our black hole function, in this line of code where we're lerping our box dude to the center of the black hole, we want to click 5 times time.delta time. We'll go ahead and save it, go back to Unity, and we'll test it one more time. Alright, so now that looked a lot better. Our main character was able to move to the center of the black hole and disappear versus disappearing somewhere on the side of the black hole. Now the last thing that we need to do is save this black hole as a prefab. So we'll click on it, drag it into our prefab folder. Once it's in our prefab folder, we can go ahead and delete it from our scene view. And make sure that you are creating groups of platforms that also contain the black hole and the monsters and the different platforms that we've created in previous videos. Make sure that you save your scene and your project.
Well, I hope you enjoyed learning how to create that black hole and that you'll be able to insert the black hole into your own games. Make sure to like and subscribe so that we can bring you guys more videos and bring them more often.
And if there's anything that you didn't understand in this lesson that we covered, you can always ask us in the comments below.